Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Health Bridge. It is Dr. Sarah Gottfried, and I'm here with Dr. Pedram Shojai.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, so I am thrilled that we've got Ben Greenfield on the line with us today. We are talking about Beyond Training, which is his awesome new book. If you're on the video, you can see me showing it next to my face. Ben is one of the top personal trainers in the U.S., and he's a good friend. We're just delighted to have you. Hello, Ben.
Hey, what's up, you guys? I'm stoked to be here.
We're stoked to have you, and I feel like there's so many places we could go as we talk to you. I feel like you're my go-to guy for training in a way that's really smart and also translates into other areas of life. And I love how you kick off in your book this story of two athletes, you know, the type A pushy type who is kind of a cortisol junkie. And it reminds me a little bit of my darling husband. And then the woman who's sort of the alternative. And I feel like I want to start there because I think it's such an interesting way to look at training.
Yeah, sure. You know, the main idea is that, you know, there's this concept of junk miles, or what's called black hole training, that a lot of people do. And this is that kind of go out and beat yourself up on a lunchtime run, working out at like maybe a 7 on a scale of 1 to 10, or hitting the gym, you know, a few times a week and never really being able to meet or exceed your previous day's performance, but just kind of like being in that rut and moving for movement's sake without actually doing anything other than just beating up your body. And that is what a lot of people's definition of fitness is, which is to just kind of tap into breathing kind of sort of hard, beating yourself up a little bit, but never really getting good results because you are either training at the same intensity all the time, or you are overtraining, or you're not stacking your work and recovery properly. And that's kind of the contrast that I make there is, you know, on the one hand, we have like this lady who's out there doing all the right things, right? She's doing high intensity interval training, programmed properly at certain intervals throughout the week, followed by smart rest and recovery, nutrient dense foods, and basically putting all this together into a life that's not that emotionally stressful. And in contrast, you've got like the hard charging CEO type who is just basically kind of like the more is better from an exercise approach. Dig yourself as deep into that exercise hole as you can, but also stress yourself out from an emotional standpoint, from a relationship standpoint. Kind of eat the traditional athletic diet, you know, comprised of whatever, energy bars and sports drinks and, you know, all the other things that we tend to think we've got a free pass for when we're working out. You know, and what I point out is that even though like both those people, and I was in this boat myself for a while, right? Like both those people can achieve pretty good levels of physical performance, but when you're looking at physical performance, health, longevity, joint stability, you know, connective tissue integrity, skin, beauty, all of that, the older you get, you know, as you're pushing 40, 50, 60, the more you've taken care of your body and thought, you know, the way I titled my book, Beyond Training, the better you're going to feel. Because for me, it's not about how fast I can do, say, an Ironman triathlon. It's about how fast I can do an Ironman triathlon and how healthy my biomarkers are and how well I'm doing from a longevity standpoint. So that's kind of the switch I've made over the past few years, is not just focusing on performance, but focusing on that ideal combination of performance and health.
That's beautiful. I mean, this no pain, no gain mentality really seems like it comes from like the military, where it's okay, you just, you know, you took a bullet, but you just keep marching along. And it doesn't really have anything to do with longevity. It really doesn't have anything to do with the reasons why we should exercise. And it sounds like there's a tremendous amount of subtle psychology that's in that undercurrent of what you're talking about, is the why and how we even engage in training and exercise, and what that means with our sense of self, our self-image, and how we interface with the world. And so I'm sure you've seen tons of that coming up in your universe, and that impetus probably drove you to you know, have such a wonderful stance on this, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, a big part of it is, let's again, since we're on this category of triathletes, use a triathlete as an example. Like, you tend to get your entire life kind of wrapped up in your identity, as you say, Pedram, wrapped up in like swimming, biking, and running, right? And you don't even feel good or complete or fulfilled at the end of the day unless you've gotten your allotted time of exercise completed, whether it's 60 minutes or 90 minutes or 2 hours or whatever. And a lot of people get sucked into that hole of their identity being wrapped up in the amount of time or intensity that they've spent exercising. And what I've found is that one of the most important things that athletes can do is to have things that satisfy that dopamine and endorphin release that go above and beyond just moving. And so that can be, everything from music to cooking to sex to movies to, anything that kind of allows you to tap into that pleasure pathway without necessarily exercising. And then kind of along the same vein, the other really important thing is to understand that you can make your body better without necessarily getting your heart rate up per se. So I have certain days now where I will visit the sauna for 30 minutes, do some cold thermogenesis, do a full body foam rolling session, take out a lacrosse ball and hit some trigger points. And by the time I've done all that, I've spent like 90 minutes making my body better, but I haven't actually exhausted hormones. I haven't actually, tapped into hard training per se, but I've still got that satisfaction of having put some work into my body. So those are a couple really important things to understand is you don't necessarily have to tap into those pathways by just like exercising.
Okay, I love that message, Ben, because I can tell you, even as I was reading that chapter about the tale of two triathletes, I'm a working mom. I'm like, okay, I don't have time to do either one of these. So I love that you're framing this as you don't have to push so hard. You don't have to like deplete all your hormones and drive your longevity off a cliff. You can actually find ways to train that can fit into your life and have a lot of pleasure from it. I also really like this idea that it doesn't all have to be in the gym, doing high intensity interval training. It can also be these other things that take care of your body and make it better. I think that's such an empowering message. So for the ladies who are listening to us, who are not triathletes, they're more in my camp, what are some of the things you say to them? The women who have like 30 minutes a day to exercise, like where can we focus in addition to the foam roller on your entire body or the sauna or the cold thermogenesis? Like where should that focus be?
Yeah, if you just have 30 minutes a day to exercise, the most important thing that you need to realize is you need to hack your environment so that exercise is just like the icing on the cake for everything else that you've done the rest of the day. So I'm actually sitting right now. That's pretty rare for me. I actually spend most of my time at a standing workstation, moving treadmill workstation. I've got a pull-up bar installed in the door of my office. I've got a big rock outside that I can go out and lift a few times a day. And I'm constantly moving and, burning calories, upregulating fat-burning enzymes, and kind of hacking my environment so that I'm not sedentary all day long. And when you do that, exercise becomes optional. And it's not just your movement that is important. It's also the mild environmental stressors that you place yourself under. So that can mean that you keep your office or your home slightly cold so that your body's always having to work to warm you. Or it means that you are, you're going out of your way to get outside in the morning, get some morning sunshine to jumpstart the metabolism that way. But basically, you're going through all these little steps so that by the end of the day, what you do is like a brief, short, high-intensity interval training session or like a brief spurt of lifting something heavy like rocks, barbells, even like some super slow lifting. I kind of like the Body by Science book by Doug McGuff for like doing some really intense but super slow protocols. But basically, if you only have a half-hour a day to work out, the important thing to remember is that the other 8 hours of the day, you can still be, burning calories or whatever, and you can get really, really good results from that standpoint. So if I only had 30 minutes a day, and I was a female and I wanted to burn fat and look good, the way that I would do it is I'd again hack the environment, and then I'd alternate opposite days of high intensity interval training session, lifting heavy stuff, and then you have one day of the week, if you're doing 3 HIIT sessions and 3 heavy lifting sessions, one day of the week that's either an easier day or a day where maybe you're doing like a fasted workout, like a nice hike out in the forest in the morning before breakfast, that type of thing. And by the way, the reason that I'm sitting is I exercised for 86 hours this week. I was actually down at the SEAL Fit Training Center in Encinitas, California, doing the Navy SEAL Hell Week. And so I slept 8 hours in the past almost 72 hours, and have pretty much been extremely beat up with exercise. So I did not follow any of my own rules this week, and I'm dug pretty far into the hole, and I can barely stand. That's why I'm sitting right now.
Wow.
I think you deserve the seat right now.
Yeah, enjoy that.
Navy SEAL Hell Week. Oh my goodness. Tell us about that. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's very, very rough. It's a week of extreme physical and mental and like verbal abuse, basically. Like a couple of nights ago, we did a 26-mile night hike with the 50-pound weighted rucksack, and then after that hike, a 2-hour breakout session, which is just all burpees and push-ups and climb. My elbows are all bleeding and torn up right now because we were like climbing in the desert, basically, in a full-on laid-out position. And then they threw us in the ocean for almost 3 hours. So we did surf swim torture, basically, where you're lying on your back in the ocean as the waves come in. This is at like 2 a.m. in the morning, and the waves are like blowing all this sand and water into your face. And then you come back up, and you got to get up with your team and do sit-ups and push-ups in the ocean, then back down, so you're freezing wet and cold. And the idea is you're 20 timesing yourself, right? You're getting yourself to the point where you're physically and mentally resilient by putting yourself through a crucible. And I'm a big fan, so I live by this philosophy where I do something hard once a day, something that takes me slightly outside my comfort zone. And then what I do is about once every 3 months or so, I do something that really, really scares me, like a crucible or something like this Navy SEAL Hell Week, or like an Ironman triathlon, or something that really takes me outside my comfort zone. And in my constant quest to get more fit and to challenge my body, that works out pretty well. But this past week was one of my toughest crucibles yet. So
that's a good one, man. Hey, I got something popped up as you guys were talking about this, and I think I got two of the most ideal people to have this discussion quickly is, the dopamine surge or the rush that these triathletes get, that you got from, fighting this good fight and really kind of challenging your genes, and how we can balance that with the serotonin happiness that, Sarah talks about so often in her books and her work, and how that balance can be struck in life. Because it seems like there's the people that need the dopamine, that are constantly pushing for that dopamine and are injuring themselves and damaging themselves and maybe not working out correctly. And the people that don't get enough of the dopamine are probably 30 pounds overweight and could use some. How can we find a balance there? And it sounds like you've kind of struck it by hell or high water here. I mean, you're down on your ass on the couch because you had that, right? And so now you're in recovery mode. How can people find a better balance between that aggressive push and that recovery mode so that life isn't so much of a yo-yo, but it flows better?
The way that I like to do this, because I'm a little bit of a nerd, a little bit of like a self-quant biohacker type of guy, is I like to use the nervous system to guide that choice. Sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system feedback. So what I mean by that is you've got your fight or flight nervous system, and you can beat that up with a lot of intensity, a lot of CrossFit sessions, a lot of, hard, heavy lifting or high intensity interval training. And then you've got your parasympathetic nervous system, which you can also exhaust and beat up by, say, doing too much aerobic training, too much long, slow workouts, too many fasted training sessions, that type of thing. But it's very easy to quantify the health and robustness of those two branches of the nervous system with something called heart rate variability training. And there are a lot of apps out there, from the Omega Wave to the Sweet Beats to the BioForce to the Inner Balance app that the Heart Math Institute puts out. But you can literally do a morning measurement for about 5 minutes. When you take that morning measurement, it'll tell you how high your heart rate variability is, which is a measurement of the robustness and how well your nervous system is actually recovered. And it'll also tell you, if you dig into the data, which branch of your nervous system is most recovered and can kind of take the biggest hit that day. Like if your sympathetic nervous system score is low, for you, the day might be yoga and maybe some foam rolling and a funny movie. And if your parasympathetic nervous system is a little bit low, but your sympathetic nervous system is strong, maybe that's the day where you get up and you do the hard workout. You do the thing that kind of beats you up a little bit. But basically, you can customize this and kind of follow your workouts and what you decide to do for that day based off where your nervous system is at. Because really, the health and robustness of your nervous system really correlates quite nicely with your muscular recovery, with your hormonal recovery. I've found it to track pretty well with my blood cortisol measurements. So that's the way that I like to do things. That a lot of my clients do it as well, is just basic 5 minutes morning heart rate variability measurements to advise you on what your activity levels are going to be like for that day.
That's great, Ben. I love it. I feel like you just took this concept of heart rate variability and you took it to the next level with helping us use that as a biomarker for your nervous system, your stress response, and then kind of the most enchanting aspect is this idea of really tuning into what do you most need today based on your measurement of heart rate variability. So I really appreciate that, and thanks for sharing some of those apps that people can use to start doing this kind of training. I just hearing about the Navy SEALs and like doing sit-ups and push-ups in the ocean for 3 hours, I'm just thinking, wow. Okay, that would definitely be way out of my comfort zone, but it would be so far out of my comfort zone that I don't know if I'd ever come back. So I'm just really interested in this idea, that how do you get out of your comfort zone? It's one of those things that you also need to individualize, because you getting out of your comfort zone is going to be pretty different from me getting out of my comfort zone. So how do you advise people, for people who are not ready to sign up for Navy SEAL Hell Week, what are some other examples that you can give for kind of getting outside of your comfort zone on a daily basis, on a quarterly basis, as you've described?
Yeah, well, one of the important things to realize is that one of the reasons that I do this, that I get outside my comfort zone, is to be able to grow as a person, and also to be able to send my body that message that it's still alive, right? That I'm still challenging myself in ways that could potentially increase my longevity or my mental performance by basically forcing myself to think and react in ways that I might not otherwise. And they've actually done research that looks at BDNF production, or brain-derived neurotrophic factor production, to see what forms of exercise or what forms of movement can actually improve cognitive performance. And one of the keys is that when you are moving, when you are exercising, if you're forcing yourself to tap into pathways of coordination, pathways of focus, pathways of problem solving as you're exercising, that's a way to actually take yourself into that zone where you're challenging yourself, and you're also improving your brain and your nervous system at the same time that you're improving your fitness. So the most important thing that you can do is to choose activities that kind of force your mind to be thinking and not just your body to be working hard. For some people, that might be, and this is going to sound dumb, but that might be Zumba, right? You're moving, you're thinking about your dance steps, you're having to kind of tap into these new cognitive pathways, right hand, left foot coordination, that type of thing. It might be a step class. It might be a kickboxing class. For a lot of people, yoga and body awareness of different body positions during a movement like yoga or hot yoga is another way to tap into those pathways of taking yourself outside your comfort zone with that simultaneous physical and mental venturing from the comfort zone. Dancing is another one, whether it be ballroom dancing or salsa or anything along those lines. A lot of gyms have a variety of different classes now, from body pump to step to kickboxing to all of these different things that are going to force you to think differently. Sports are another really, really good one. I'm a big fan of tennis. I play tennis 3 times a week. And to me, tennis is kind of a combination of physical and mental chess. It's like boxing without having to get punched in the face necessarily. So you're kind of dealing blows with the person across the net from you, moving and reacting and responding to the ways that they move. A lot of gyms have things like noon ball or basketball that you can get involved in, or other sports. I mean, like speed golf, frisbee golf, ultimate frisbee. There are so many things that you can use to push yourself outside your comfort zone that don't necessarily involve signing up for a Navy SEALs Hell Week. So what I would recommend that you do is you have 1 to 2 times during the week where you go and try a new class at your gym, or you jump into a local sports league that kind of introduces you to a sport that challenges you, or that's new, that involves basically working with the team or working with concentrating on like a ball or a moving object. But there's obviously a variety of things that you can do, but the most important thing is to not get stuck in a rut, because really the only difference between a rut and a grave is the depth of the hole, right? So you want to consistently be kind of forcing yourself out of that rut and challenging yourself.
That's a truth bomb right there. I love it. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I'm going to do a quick recap here. And, for people who are listening who just want more Ben, give me more Ben, go to bengreenfieldfitness.com. That's where Ben hangs out. You got to get his book, Beyond Training. So quick recap. Okay, Ben, keep me honest here. I tried to write down all these amazing pieces of wisdom you shared with us. So we started off first, point number 1, about the tale of 2 triathletes. And I really love how you framed it as, the type A personality, the guy who is just pushing himself so hard. He's depleting his hormones. He's sacrificing his longevity. And then you have the example of the female triathlete who's actually having a good time and really enjoying her training. And she's also got her recovery right. She's not under recovering the way that the first guy is. The second point you made, which I really love, is about satisfying that dopamine hit that so many athletes need, and that there's ways you can do it beyond just training hard. You can get it from music. There's many ways to get this novelty hit, such as some of these points you just made about, trying out different classes at your gym, or, finding some other ways to work with that aspect of your brain beyond pushing yourself hard. Third point, I really like this, how to make your body better without exercise. So you gave us some really great alternatives, which I like, and how it's the sum is greater than the individual parts, because when you have a day where you're doing a sauna or cold thermogenesis, or you're foam rolling your whole body, you're still making your body better without pushing yourself hard. Fourth point, I forced you to tell us what to do for the women who are listening who have 30 minutes a day and that's all they got for training. You gave us some great examples. You talked about hacking your environment, and I love how you have this holistic integrated view that it's not just the exercise that you're doing for 30 minutes, it's also setting up your environment. It's being at a stand-up desk and, you mentioned your pull-up bar that you have in your office. So I love this idea of hacking your environment. And you gave us some examples of what to do in that 1 day a week. And then fifth point, I love this about, you do something hard 1 day, once a day, and you also push yourself way beyond your comfort zone, do something terrifying once a quarter. You gave us the example of the Navy SEAL Hell Week, and I think I need to go back and listen to that again, because it was just like so shocking and fascinating, and I want to think about it more. So those are 5 main points. I want to say this last one as a bonus about using your nervous system to really guide you in terms of assessing what you most need in a day. You know, doing 5 minutes of heart rate variability with some of the apps that you mentioned, such as Inner Balance from HeartMath or Omega Wave, BioForce, so that you can see, okay, my sympathetic nervous system is underperforming. I need to focus on getting that regulated and balanced today. I really like kind of that next gen way of thinking about heart rate variability and assessing your balance between sympathetic nervous system and parasympathetic nervous system. So how did I do, Ben, in summarizing your points?
You get an A. I think you nailed it.
She always does, man.
Anything you want to add in terms of listeners learning more from you?
No, I mean, you can go to bengreenfieldfitness.com to read the articles that I put out and access more information over there. But, really, if I could give an even more brief summary, what it comes down to is challenging yourself, both physically and mentally, recovering and resting intelligently, and then coming back and meeting or exceeding your previous days or your previous workouts performance. And if you can tap into that cycle of working, compensating, and then coming back for more, you're constantly going to get better.
That's fantastic. Guys, Ben Greenfield, now you know why we like him. Wonderful, wonderful stuff. I'm going to try that tomorrow morning. I mean, this is super applicable, easy to do, and build into the fitness rest recovery cycles. I think that's great. Hey, Ben, thank you so much for joining us on the show. We'd love to have you back, and good luck recovering, man. Sounds like you've had a hell of a week.
A hell week.
Literally. Had a hell week.
Literally.
So thanks everybody for joining us. I'm going to take Ben's advice and I'm going to put it in my gong. So for those of you who haven't checked out the gong, go to healthbridgeshow.com/gong, where you can learn more about what's going on. You can start your gong, your 100-day gong at any time.
Right on. See you next time.
Bye, everybody.